Hello everyone! It's been 5 years already since I did the complete story of Warcraft, and quite a lot has changed since then. The Warcraft chronicles have cleaned up and revealed some of the mysteries in the lore. There's been Warlords of Draenor, Legion, and now Battle for Azeroth that have been added to the expansion list. Couple of books, audio dramas, short stories, and beautiful YouTube videos in between. All in all, enough change to sit down and honor your many requests of getting an updated version. Give me 40 minutes, and you will know the global story of the Warcraft universe. Now say that you do want more details on specific characters or events, then by all means check out the full chronological playlist linked in the description down below. Or of course, you could also decide to subscribe to the channel, where we cover a new subject every single Monday. With that introduction out of the way, I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the full story of Warcraft. In the beginning, before even the cosmos took shape, there was light, and then there was void. The tensions between these two opposing, yet inseparable energies, it eventually ignited a series of catastrophic explosions, birthing a whole new realm into existence. In that moment, where the light and void crashed with each other, the physical universe was born. Conflict between light and darkness. That is what created the Warcraft universe. Not surprising that we call it Warcraft, the stage for every story that we know of, and every story that's still to come. So out of this clash, the universe came to be. The energies raging across the cosmos, bringing life to worlds without number. The universe expanded. Different kinds of cosmic forces came to be. All kinds of different life and beings popped up. Amongst these beings were the colossal titans. Their spirits, known as world souls, they formed deep within the fiery core of a small number of worlds. Eventually they woke up, formed a pantheon, and they set out to wake up more of their kind, scouring the great dark beyond in search of them. While doing so, they brought order to the planets that they encountered. But not all force in the universe, they were down with that order lifestyle. From the moment that the light and void clashed with each other, dark spirits within the void, known as the Void Lords, they sought to twist reality into a realm of eternal torment. For a long time, they watched the Titans go about their business, and they were envious of their power. They wanted to corrupt one of these world-shaping Titans into an instrument of their will. At first, they tried to corrupt one of these fully grown Titans, but they quickly discovered that that was not an option. So instead, they set their mind on the more vulnerable ones. Those Titans, still slumbering. Of course, like the Titans themselves, the Void Lords, they had no idea which planets actually contained one of these spirits, so they decided to just pool their powers together and send out creatures, known as Old Gods, to infect and corrupt as many of the worlds as they could. A shot in the dark, hoping that at least a few of the minions would land on a planet which contained one of these spirits. As luck would have it, some did indeed hit their mark. In the meantime, the Pantheon, they were aware of the Void energies, but they had no idea of the Void Lords or the Old Gods. Their attention was consumed by another dark force, born from a realm called the Twisting Nether. Demons, we call them, beings enslaved to unbridled hate and malice. They hungered for nothing less than the destruction of all life in the universe. Not exactly a lifestyle that the Titans are down with, so as the demons caught their attention, the Pantheon decided to send out their mightiest warrior, the noble Sargeras, to deal with them. For ages, he traveled to the worlds under attack, battling the demons. Yet in time, he started to notice something quite strange. He encountered demons that he had battled and vanquished before. Turns out that the demons can only truly die in their own realm, within the Twisting Nether. Something that Sargeras did not fully realize. All he understood was that the demons, they did not stay dead. So instead, he decided to imprison them within a pocket dimension. Their prison would soon enough overflow with demons, which brought peace to the cosmos. Now attacks from the demons, they would remain a constant threat to the great dark beyond, but they became increasingly rare. The Titans' world, they prospered, and life in all of its complexity flourished, until Sargeras found out just how dark the great dark could be. On his journey, he discovered a world infected by the Old Gods, and not just any old world, this was one with a slumbering Titan inside. The demons that were chilling on the planet, basking in the void energies, they were interrogated by Sargeras until they revealed what they had learned about the Old Gods and the ultimate, terrifying plan of the Void Lords. If the powers of the Void were indeed successful in corrupting a slumbering Titan, it would awaken as an unspeakably dark creature. No power in creation, not even the Pantheon, could stand against it. In time, the Warp Titan would consume all matter and energy in the universe, bring every mode of existence under the Void Lord's will. In that moment, Sargeras, the undefeated champion of the Titans, knew fear for the first time. Knowing what the Void Lords were after, with sorrow in his heart, he decided that this slumbering Titan could never be allowed to wake up. His mighty blade split the world in two. The explosion, it did consume the old gods and their dark energies, but it also killed the nascent Titan. When Sargeras met up with the rest of the Pantheon again, he told them of what he had learned, what he had done to stop it, and the Pantheon, they weren't too thrilled with his actions. There were already so few of them in the vast universe. They couldn't believe that Sargeras had killed one of their kind. Who knows what they could have done to save it, to cleanse it from its corruption. Purging it was not the only choice that they had had, and an heated argument followed. In the end, Sargeras remained unconvinced, and he believed that only by burning away all of creation could the Titans stand a chance of stopping the Void Lord's ultimate goal. In Sargeras' mind, even in a lifeless universe, it was better than one dominated by the Void. Life had taken root in the cosmos once before. Perhaps after scouting it of its corruption, life would take root once again. The Pantheon would never see it his way, and Sargeras stormed off to follow his own plans. The prison that he had worked so hard to fill, it was shattered, and the demons were recruited into his army. It was time to lead a crusade, a burning crusade with his burning legion, to burn away the corruption. While Sargeras was away to form his burning legion, the rest of the Pantheon, they kept on going with their quests. Eventually, they stumbled upon a planet which contained a Titan spirit, but was also corrupted by the old gods. We now call this planet Azeroth, and instead of destroying it, they sought to help that slumbering spirit inside by bringing order to the planet. As Sargeras demonstrated, the Titan's power, it was more than enough to destroy the old gods, but the Pantheon feared that doing it themselves, it would cause too much damage to the soul. So instead, they created an army of enormous servants from the very crust of Azeroth itself. These Titanforged, they were led by Titan Keepers in the war against the Black Empire, the empire of the old gods, known as C'Thun, Yogg Saron, Azshara, and N'Zoth. First, they battled with the enslaved elemental lords. Now slaying them, it was not really an option, as they were bound to Azeroth itself. So, they decided to follow Sargeras' example and created a pocket dimension to contain them. This elemental plane, it would house the elements safely. With the old gods' mighty lieutenants out of the way, their battle continued against the old gods' remaining forces, and eventually the dark, mighty beings themselves. The first one, Azshara, turned out to be so powerful that the Pantheon feared the old god would overwhelm their servants. Despite the better judgment, they still reached down and ripped it out of the planets. What they had feared was exactly what happened. A massive wound was left behind, and now the lifeblood of that slumbering Titan spirit, it was starting to spill out. Now they knew for certain that tearing out the old gods would destroy Azeroth itself. Instead, imprisonment was once again the better solution. C'Thun, Yogg Saron, N'Zoth, and the heart of Azshara, which had fallen back onto the planet as they had ripped it out. They were all contained within their own subterranean chambers, locked away within enchanted prisons. The war against the Black Empire, it was won by the Pantheon and their servants. And despite that darkness being locked away beneath the world, for the first time in Azeroth's history, a sense of peace settled over the planet. Now there was still quite a bit of work to do. First step was patching up the wound that was left behind by Azshara with something that they called the Well of Eternity. With that immediate threat out of the way, they worked on strengthening the nascent world soul and stabilize its life force. Titan machineries and facilities, they were built for that exact purpose. To help it grow, help it heal, help it mature into a Titan rumored to be even more powerful than Sargeras himself. More of the Titan forts were created to help safeguard the world, keep an eye on things, shape the surface, and help that spirit grow. Now don't get me wrong, not all of the creatures on Azeroth were actually shaped by the Titan's hands. Some of them evolved over time, or were simply already there. Twilight fell as the Titanforge surveyed the world that they had shaped, and they named the primary continent Kalimdor, Land of Eternal Starlight. The Titans had done everything possible to heal the world of Azeroth and assure the world's sole future. All that remained now was to wait and hope that one day the world's soul would awaken. As Azeroth was left behind to do its thing, the Titans, they ran into Sargeras again, going about his burning crusade. They tried to convince him of another, better way. They had just done some amazing things to a corrupted world soul. Perhaps one day, this one would actually awaken and stand with them. Sargeras did not have to burn all of creation, but the Dark Titan, he heard nothing but another target for him to take out. A massive battle followed by these titanic beings. A battle in which Sargeras struck down his former brothers and sister. Their spirits, they did survive, but their forms were shattered, and Sargeras then set his eyes on finding this Azeroth. At the time, he didn't know where in the great dark beyond this corrupted planet might be, but he had time and he would eventually track it down. Also, that battle with the Pantheon, it showed him that his demonic forces, they were quite powerful, but they definitely lacked in leadership. Intelligent minds to lead his forces. The Dark Lord of the Legion figured that the race of Eredar from the planet of Argus, that they would make for a fine addition to his troops. He showed up and offered them a spot amongst his ranks. Power and knowledge beyond their wildest dreams. 2 of their 3 leaders, Kil'jaeden and Archimonde, they were on board with his plan. They decided to sign up, while the 3rd leader, Velen the Prophet, he saw that this was a very bad idea. Instead of joining Sargeras, he decided to take as many of his people as he could, and he ran away with the aid of the Naru, beings of holy light. This was a move that Kil'jaeden took very personal. He felt betrayed by his co-leader, his brother in spirit, and promised that he would hunt Velen and the now called Draenei down, even if it took him 1,000 years. Now on the run, the Draenei moved from planet to planet, trying to outmaneuver the Legion, until the moment came where they could run no more and crash landed on a world that they named Draenor. It was not an empty planet. Amongst the races was a race known as the Orcs, and the coming of the Draenei that would have a massive impact on the future of their people. In the meantime, on Azeroth, we saw life do its thing. Races, they grew and evolved, worked hard to further their empires. A race known as the Night Elves, they'd set a base near the Well of Eternity, and they were studying its properties, delving deeper into this fount of power, until their research, it drew the attention of Sargeras and the Legion. Finally, he had found this Azeroth. Now all he needed to do was find a way to reach it. Queen Azshara and her Night Elf followers, they were down with bringing Sargeras into the world, and they tried to use the well as a massive portal. Nearly they succeeded, but the resistance formed of other Night Elves who were not down with the Queen's plans. Demigods, Furbolgs, Tauren, dragons, all kinds of races that did not want to be annihilated. They rose up and prevented the Queen's plans. They were even able to reverse the portal and send the Legion back to where they came from. Now all this messing around with the Well of Eternity, it made it incredibly unstable. It imploded, which sundered the land of Kalimdor apart, and makes it look like we know it as today. Despite that massive damage and all the loss of life, the day was definitely saved. Sargeras was pushed back, but the Dark Titan's gaze had fallen upon Azeroth, and he would not rest until his mission was complete. The Legion had their first taste of Azeroth, and would come back many times in the future. And let's not forget that Kil'jaeden, he still had vengeance to claim upon the Draenei. Back on Draenor, the Draenei were found by the Legion again. Yet this time Kil'jaeden decided to not send out their full force, only to see their former kin run away. This time they decided to use the Orcs to do their dirty work. Pitch them against the Draenei, despite living together on the planet in relative peace for centuries now. Fel magic was introduced to their tribes and replaced the use of elemental magic, replaced the use of shamanism. The Orcs were manipulated, banded together and formed a Horde. Corrupted, its effects not only visible to the Orcs themselves, but also the planet that they lived on. Eventually, the Pit Lord Manoroth offered them demonic blood, a great gift in the eyes of the Orcs, and while it did indeed give them incredible power, it also made them slaves to the Legion. They didn't know this, of course, and most of them decided to drink. Nearly all of the Draenei were wiped out by their might. Some of them even forced to stay behind for the slaughter to make it look like Kil'jaeden had completed his mission. Only so that a small part of the race would survive, and their plans actually worked. Kil'jaeden did believe that he'd been successful. Now on orders of Sargeras, he decided to leave the Orcs to their fates, to rot away on a dying world. The Horde was a powerful force, now desperate for survival. Desperate enough to build the Dark Portal and go through it to Azeroth, a brand new world to conquer. The right weapon to weaken Azeroth's defenses in preparation for a full-scale Legion invasion. Even the Orcs that had not touched the demon blood, they followed through the gateway. After all, it was their only way of survival, and the first Horde invasion of Azeroth began.
In the Age of Chaos, 2 factions battled for dominance. The kingdom of Azeroth was a prosperous one. The humans who dwelled there turned the land into a paradise. the Knights of Stormwind and the clerics of Norcia Abbey roamed far and wide, serving the king's people with honor and justice. The well-trained armies of the king maintained a lasting peace for many generations. Then came the Orcish hordes. No one knew where these creatures came from, and none were prepared for the terror that they spawned.
Now just imagine this alien force popping up out of nowhere. It was quite a shock to the people, and some did not believe the initial reports about the monstrous orcs. As the Horde conquered more and more lands, their eyes were soon opened to the truth, and the alliance of Lordaeron was formed. They fought very hard over the fate of the world, with Azeroth being victorious. Now some of the orcs, they were able to escape home through the Dark Portal, which was then shut down. Others, they ran away and survived in the wilds, while those that surrendered, they were placed within internment camps. Defeated, but not vanquished. The Horde still had a dying homeworld, and they came back through the Dark Portal for a second time. It reopened, this time not to conquer the planets. Instead, they gathered powerful artifacts, which in turn they could use to open more portals to other worlds to conquer those instead. The Alliance of Lordaeron made the very hard decision to follow the Horde through the portal and take the battle to them, prevent them from inflicting the same suffering that they had caused to Azeroth. Again, the Horde was defeated, but not before these portals were created. Massive rifts across all of Draenor opened up, which caused the already corrupted planet to transform into Outland as we know it today. The Alliance heroes were stranded on Outland as the Dark Portal was shut down once again. Their heroic sacrifice, it gave Azeroth time to rebuild and heal, but the threats to the world are far from over.
We never paid any heed to the ancient prophecies. Like fools, we clung to the old hatreds. And fought as we had for generations.
This brings us to the Warcraft 3 time periods, in which the new scheme of the Legion, it came in the form of the Lich King. This powerful being was created and sent down by Kil'jaeden, with the goal of weakening the world, summoning more Legion forces, and accomplish that goal of claiming Azeroth. From the cold lands of Northrend, the Lich King's influence spread. Death washed over the lands of Lordaeron and beyond. Prince Arthas, he tried desperately to save his people, but in his quest, he fell to the Lich King's schemes, picked up the Cursed Blade Frostmourne, and instead became an agent of the Lich King. The very thing that he had tried to fight against. Now it was he who led this scourge, and he brought his father's lands to ruin. The high home of the High Elves was also invaded and brought low. With the use of their Sunwell, another magical fount of power, Arthas resurrected Kel'Thuzad as a Lich, as he was needed to summon Archimonde into the world. This act, it did corrupt the well, something that the High Elves had become very dependent on. Their prince, Kil'Thas Sunstrider, announced to their survivors that they would now be known as the Blood Elves, in honor of those whose blood had been spilled, trying to defend the lands against Arthas. This didn't compensate for the loss of their well, but their prince, he would do everything it took to find some way to save his people. Now Archimonde, he was there 10,000 years ago, and he clearly remembered the Lich's defeat at the hands of the Night Elves, so he decides that would be their first target to take care of the massive threats. In the meantime, we saw something quite extraordinary happen. In the internment camps, there was Thrall, an Orcish child raised as a slave gladiator, who rose up and set his people free. He reformed the Hordes, not with the intention of conquering Azeroth again. He wanted to guide them back to the more honorable ways of old. Find a place on the planet that they could call their own, a planet that now needed defense against Archimonde and the Legion. Under the guidance of Medivh, Thrall continued his journey, and eventually met up with Sen'jin, leader of the Darkspear Trolls, who was sadly sacrificed by Murlocs. His son Vol'jin would take over leadership and join the Hordes. The same goes for the Bloodhoof Tauren, led by their chieftain Cairn Bloodhoof. The Horde's family was growing with more and more races, but Medivh had not only reached out to them, he also approached Jaina Proudmoore. She in turn took the survivors of Lordaeron, those that had survived the onslaught of the Scourge, and eventually met up with Thrall and the Hordes. It was an insane idea to begin with, to have the Alliance and Horde work together, considering the past that they shared, but these leaders, they were wise enough to put away old hatreds for the sake of the world. And of course, the Orcs are no strangers to the threats that the demons pose. The demonic blood curse, it had pretty much doomed their race, the blood of Manoroth, which was offered as a gift. Gromash's Hellscream was the first amongst the Orcs to drink, and it would be he to strike down the blow that fell Manoroth now, liberating his people while sacrificing his life in the process.
I have freed myself. No, old friend. You've freed us all.
Together with the Night Elves, they stood against the might of the Legion and banished Archimonde off the planet. The day had indeed been saved, but the Legion had come very close, and victory did not come without sacrifice. Yet all the same, Jaina and Thrall, human and orc, allies and hordes, they had shown that by working together, they could accomplish some of the amazing things. In an attempt to be an example to the world to keep this peace going, Thrall decided to settle within Orgrimmar, while Jaina, she took her people to an area close by, to Theramore Keep. They would continue to work hard to show the world that together they stood stronger, despite some being unable to let go of those old hatreds. Yet despite Archimonde and the Legion's defeat, the Lich King, he was still on the planet, actively working against his Legion masters. He was no willing puppet, quite the opposite. Something that Kil'jaeden took notice of, and he decided to recruit Illidan the Stormrage, who's a Night Elf demon hunter, labeled a betrayer by his people for his actions during the War of the Ancients. They had decided to set him free from his cage after being imprisoned for 10,000 years, as he would be a powerful weapon against this new Legion attack. Again, they disapproved of his methods, and they banished him from their lands. Now Kil'jaeden offered Illidan whatever he wanted, in exchange for his aid of disposing the Lich King. Now Illidan, he was no friend to the Legion either, but he knew full well that truly taking care of them, it could not be done on Azeroth. They would have to take the battle to them. So for now, he pretended to go along with Kil'jaeden's plans, keep his enemy close, so to say, and work hard to take care of the Lich King. For this mission, he recruited Lady Vashj and the Naga into his ranks. They are former elves that were there when Azshara led them in a disastrous mission of bringing Sargeras into the world. They nearly drowned for their efforts as the well imploded, but thankfully for them, an allegiance with the old god N'Zoth, it saved their lives and transformed them into the Naga. There was also Kael'Thas Sunshine that joined the ranks, the leader of the Blood Elves, formerly known as the High Elves, who were hit hard by Arthas and the Scourge. He was still on the quest to find a way of salvation for his addicted people, and his hope of solving their plight, it now lay with Illidan Stormrage. Together, they did their very best, but Arthas the Death Knight, he still bested them and claimed his prize of merging with the Lich King, while Illidan, he was forced to hide away in Outland and work on some new plans to stop the Legion.
4 years have passed since the mortal races banded together and stood united against the might of the Burning Legion. Though Azeroth was saved, the tenuous pact between the Horde and the Alliance has all but evaporated. The drums of war thunder once again.
Warcraft 3 sets the stage for classic World of Warcraft. As the intro, it describes old hatreds rising up again, despite previously standing together against the might of the Burning Legion. For the Horde, we see it made up of the Orcs led by Thrall, the Tauren led by Cairn, the Trolls led by Vol'jin, and as the fourth race, it's the Forsaken led by Sylvanas Windrunner. These are the citizens of Lordaeron that fell to the plague and rose up as living undead. They were known as the Scourge. In time, they were able to liberate themselves and regain control. Now they're hellbent on claiming vengeance for what Arthas has done to them. They joined the Horde in an alliance of convenience. Then, for the alliance, we don't see the humans of Theramore be part of the faction. Instead, it's the humans of Stormwind, led by King Anduin Wrynn, as his father Varian at the time is missing. Next to the humans, we also see the Dwarves of Ironforge, led by King Magni Bronzebeard, the Gnomes of Gnomeregan, led by Gelvin Makatork, and the Night Elves, led by Tyrande Whisperwind. While the Alliance and Horde went at each other again, they also quickly realized that there were still big threats that need to be taken care of. Threats bigger than either one of the factions. For example, we saw Ragnaros the Firelord stirring within his lair in the Molten Core. While previously banished to his elemental plane of fire, the Dark Island Dwarves, they were foolish enough to accidentally summon him during their civil war, and he's been a threat ever since. There was also Nefarian, the Black Dragon and child of Deathwing the Destroyer, that has taken up residence in the top of the mountain. His sister Onyxia, she is the one responsible for Varian's disappearance, and has now infiltrated Stormwind under the disguise of Lady Kachana Prestor. She must be exposed and dealt with in her lair. There's Hakar the Soulflayer, blood god of the Gurubashi Trolls. The old god Kafun, imprisoned by the Titans, he now stirs behind the Scarlet Wall within Ankh-Kiraj. And then Kel'Thuzad and the floating citadel of Naxxramas. A taste of the Lich King's powers that still threaten to consume the world. All kinds of conflicts that are threatening to devour the planet. But by working together, the world of Azeroth holds its own.
Imprisoned for 10,000 years. Banished from my own homeland. And now you dare enter my realm. You are not prepared.
Time to take this party and move it to a whole different planet. To Outland we go, where the Orcs come from, and Illidan is hiding out, working on his plans against the Legion. This wasn't known to us at the time, of course, and with Kil'jaeden manipulating things behind the scenes, we saw the Dark Portal open up once more. The Alliance had the Draenei join them, led by Prophet Velen, those that had survived the war against the Horde and had hidden out on Outland for all this time. They now crash-landed on Azeroth and joined the faction. Thrall's Horde saw the addition of the Blood Elves join their ranks. With the aid of Sylvanas Windrunner, they were accepted in. Now Kael'Thas Sunstrider, at this time, he's still their official leader. But while he had already teamed up with Illidan and Outlands, their people are actually led by Regent Lord Lorthmar Faron. For the Orcs, it was quite a shock to step through the Dark Portal and return home to a land so massively destroyed. For Thrall, this was the first time that he actually set foot on the homeworld of his parents. And here, he met up with Garrosh Hellscream, son of Vashj. He who so heroically had liberated their people from the demonic blood curse. Garrosh would eventually decide to join Thrall back home to Azeroth, whereas the Alliance, they met up with heroes of old. The members of the Alliance of Lordaeron that had stopped the Horde from invading different worlds. Here it was, where they took on threats like Lady Vashj and the Naga. Even Kael'Thas Sunstrider, he turned out to be allied with Kil'jaeden, so his own people were forced to rise up against him, until finally, Illidan the Betrayer was slain within the Black Temple, and the real threat revealed itself. Kael'Thas had switched sides and worked together with Kil'jaeden to set up a portal and bring him into Azeroth. This one, not over the Well of Eternity, instead it was over the Sunwell, and this one was also reversed. Kil'jaeden was sent back to where he came from, and the Blood Elves' fount of power was reignited. This birthed a brand new future, a new hope for their people. Just in time for the one that had caused them so much misery to wake up and assault the world again. Arthas the Lich King was ready to conquer the world, and heroes, they ventured into the cold heart of Northrend to try and stand up against him. Joining them on this quest were Arthas' very own Death Knights that had risen up against the former master. While in Northrend, the formerly mad blue dragon aspect called Malygos, he decided to strike out at the world of mortals, who in his eyes were abusing magic. Not a crazy notion either, considering what kind of effects dabbling with magic have had so far. He became such a problem that even his fellow dragons teamed up with us, and we took him on. There was also the ancient evil of the old god Yogg stirring within Ulduar, another old god trying to break out of his prison. Once more, the world united, doing the near impossible. Not only did they stop Yogg from breaking out, they also ended Arthas' life.
Father, is it over?
At long last. No king rules forever, my son.
I see. Only darkness before me.
There must always be a Lich King though, and it was decided that Bolvar Fordragon would pick up the helmet and become the jailer of the damned. Now with her ultimate goal accomplished, Sylvanas Windrunner decided that his undead life was not meant for her. By flinging herself from the top of Icecrown, she left the Forsaken behind and killed herself. But instead of feeling the embrace of a nice afterlife, she actually ended up in hell. Or at least Warcraft's version of that. Now here she would have stayed, enjoying eternal torment for all eternity, was it not for the Valkyr. Still bound to the will of the Lich King, the will of Bolvar. They wanted to be free from the Frozen Throne, so they made the Banshee Queen an offer. They would take her out of here, take her place in hell instead. Even raise more Forsaken to replenish her troops. In exchange, they would be far away from this cold damp place. And so, the bargain was made. But not just Sylvanas saw a change of motivation. Quite a lot of changes were happening to the factions, as well as the world of Azeroth. The Black Dragon Deathwing, he'd been recovering his strength. Listening to the whispers of the old gods, it was about time to bring about the Hour of Twilight. The moment in which the old gods would break out of their prisons and rule the world once more. Deathwing's coming, it did not go unnoticed. Plenty of people, they felt that something wasn't quite right with the world. For example, there was Magni Bronzebeard, the king of the dwarves. He decided to go through this ancient titan ritual to communicate with the land and figure out what was going on. Instead of just communicating with the land, he actually became one with it. He turned into a crystal, which gave his daughter Moira the perfect opportunity to come home and seize the throne. Varian Rin, however, he wasn't down with that plan, so instead a council was formed. All 3 dwarven clans, the Bronzebeards, the Dark Irdens, and the Wildhammers, all of them would be represented within the Alliance. We also saw that the Gilneans were having some trouble dealing with the Cataclysm. They were once part of the Alliance of Lordaeron. Their leader Greymane, over time, had decided to build this mighty wall around their kingdom, which was a great way to hold out threats from without, but also made it difficult to deal with threats from within. Their people were hit hard with the Worgen curse, which took over their mind, lost to the beast, until they managed to regain control and eventually rejoined the Alliance. On the Horde side, we saw Thrall decided to go back to Outland and learn more about his shamanistic ways, to figure out what was going on with the world, and perhaps even try to heal it. That meant that the Horde would lose his war chief, so Thrall decided to appoint Garrosh Hellscream to take charge. Garrosh had shown to be a great commander during their campaign in Northrend, and Thrall trusted him to lead their people well. Despite voices raising concern with his choice, voices like Cairn Bloodhoof and even Garrosh himself, Thrall, he had made up his mind and he left the Horde in the hands of Hellscream. This quickly resulted in conflicts and rising tensions between the Alliance and the Horde, even within the Horde itself. Cairn thought that the road Garrosh had taken him on, it was not the right way to go, so he challenged his warchief to Mak'gora, an honorable duel to the death for leadership over the Hordes. The old bull might have actually won this battle, was it not for enemies scheming behind their backs. Not even Garrosh was aware of the poison that had coated his weapon, yet it took the life of Cairn all the same. This meant that his son Baine had to step up and lead their people, lead them as Deathwing broke out and the Cataclysm shattered the world.
And all will burn beneath the shadow of my wings.
Like the Sundering 10,000 years ago, this shattering, it transformed the surface of the world, the layout of the land. While the Alliance and the Hordes, they were fighting once again. Deathwing and the old god N'Zoth, they executed their plans. Now thankfully, the world, it had more defenders than just the factions. Cooler heads who saw reason, where others were blinded by hatreds. They united and worked against Deathwing and N'Zoth. Eventually, the Alliance and Horde, they followed their example. Thrall, now going by the name of Goel, the name that his parents would have given him, on his journey, he managed to recruit the goblins of Khazan to join the Hordes. Led by just the Gallywix, they had lost their island to the Cataclysm. Funny enough, also to the greed of the leader. Now Goel, he then went on to unite with the other dragon aspects, combining their forces together, and they defeated Deathwing, as well as prevented the Hour of Twilight. The world was saved again, yet the Cataclysm, it did quite a lot of damage to it. So Goel decided to stay on in a healing role, leaving leadership of the Horde in the hands of Garrosh. He did not follow the same visions as Thrall had for the Hordes. He did not believe in working together with the Alliance, begging for resources. In his mind, the Horde should take and conquer whatever the Horde needed. A conflict that blew up with the bombing of Theramore, destroying what Jaina Proudmoore had tried to build. A conflict that took them to a land previously hidden by mists, the mysterious lands of Pandaria. While going there, we also saw the Pandaren of the Wandering Isle join either the Alliance and the Hordes, depending on their beliefs. A brand new fighting style in the form of monks were added to their arsenal. We saw G Firepaw lead those that decided to join Team Red, whereas Isa Cloudsong, she led those for Team Blue.
To ask why we fight is to ask why the leaves fall. It is in their nature.
On Pandaria, the Alliance and Horde fought with one another over dominance of the lands, resources and people. What they didn't know was that this land did not do well with conflicts. When the old god Azshara was ripped out of the planet, little pieces of him fell back around this area, infusing it with some dark force called the Sha. It feeds on negative emotions, which caused a whole bunch of problems for the Pandaren, that the factions then needed to clean up. While Garrosh, he's having his forces search far and wide for more power to add to the Horde's arsenal. The heart of the old god Azshara is found, locked away beneath the land. It shows Garrosh grand visions, his dreams to come true, infuses him with ancient dark power. He's not corrupted, like so many that have dealt with the powers of the void. Instead, he actually used the power of the heart as a weapon to accomplish his goals. Eventually, even those amongst the Horde feel that what the warchief is doing is too far, is not the way of the Hordes. Vol'jin rises up and leads the Darkspear Rebellion. Together with the Alliance, the other force of the Horde, even Goel showing up, they kick Garrosh out of the mantle of warchief, but they do not actually kill him. Instead, he is placed on trial to answer for his crimes, whereas Vol'jin, he takes over leadership of the Horde. The trial took place in Pandaria, but instead of facing his final judgment, Garrosh was taken by the bronze dragon Kairos Dormu back in time to this alternate reality.
Drink. Hellscream. Claim your destiny.
To Draenor, around the time that the Orcs were offered their demonic blood by Manoroth. Garros' plan was to have Garrosh form a brand new army, have it stand with the original Azeroth against the coming Legion. But Hellscream, he had no intention of being used like that. Instead, he murdered the Bronze, he changed time, and prevented his alternate father and the other Orcs from drinking the demon blood, but still formed the Horde. The Iron Horde that would claim the Azeroth that he had left behind. The Dark Portal, it now turned red, and Azeroth saw another invasion. Only, the world itself had grown very strong over time. Strong because of one another, and united, they stepped through the red portal to take the battle to Garrosh and the Iron Hordes. Yet the schemes of the Legion are not easily prevented. With each step that they took to dismantle this Iron Horde, Garrosh was even slain by Goel Imakora. The Legion's hold over these alternate Orcs, it grew stronger, until they again drank the demon blood and pledged themselves to the Legion. Even Archimonde showed up again, but was defeated all the same. In his final moments, he sends this alternate Gul'dan over to our reality to kick off yet another invasion from the Legion, the biggest one Azeroth had ever seen. On the Broken Shore, the Alliance and Horde tried to stop this invasion before it could even begin, but what they didn't know was that this was a death trap and they were quickly overwhelmed. War Chief Vol'jin was poisoned by the demons, forcing Sylvanas to call the retreat, which left the Alliance to fend for themselves. Varian Wrynn, in turn, was forced to sacrifice himself so that the Alliance could retreat. Now it's his son Anduin that leads their forces, whereas Vol'jin's final breath that came to him in Orgrimmar just before the spirits whispered to him to make Sylvanas the war chief. Devastating blows to both factions, which meant that the heroes of the world, they had to rise up themselves and form the mighty order halls. All the classes got their own place to hang out in, their own artifacts, legendary weapons of power to chase down, and then they had to figure out some way of closing the gateway from which the Legion was pouring forth. By scouting the Broken Isles, they gathered ancient relics needed to do so. But just closing this portal and sending the Legion back to where they came from, it wouldn't be enough. Illidan's Stormrage had been right all along. Sargeras and his Legion, they won't ever stop, not until we end them. So, Illidan's trained demon hunters, they're released from the prisons and added to our ranks. Their lord, he was slain at the end of the Burning Crusade. Now it would be really handy to have him stand with us. As luck would have it, he did not actually die. Instead, his demonic soul went to the Twisting Nether. So, we claimed the soul, put it back into his body, and just like that, the betrayer is on our side once more.
Now, mortals, follow me into the abyss.
After alternate Gul'dan's defeat and sealing off that gateway, we end up in heated combat with Kil'jaeden himself, who guides us all the way to Argus, former homeworld of the Draenei. We would have crashed and burned right there, was it not for Illidan. He opened up a massive rift between our two worlds. Easy access to take the battle to the Legion, but also easy access for Sargeras to finally claim his prize. Time is of the essence, so we quickly fly out to Argus, and to our shock and surprise, we actually run into the spirits of the Titans. They've been tortured by Sargeras' minions, trying to be converted to his will. Actions that they took thousands and thousands of years ago, it now leads to liberation. We show the Titans and the Legion that a corrupted planet, it could produce more than death and destruction to the universe. Together, we stand with the shapers of our world, and Sargeras, he nearly claims Azeroth. As his flaming sword pierces the world, causing massive damage to our planet, the Pantheon, they drag him back and imprison him. We've actually succeeded in our mission. The threat of the Burning Legion is finally over. A victory earned, but again, not one without a price. Our world is hurting, bleeding a powerful new resource, known as Azerites, one that reignites the conflict between the Alliance and the Hordes.
This will change everything.
The battle for Azeroth is upon us, in the form of a faction war, the Alliance versus Horde. Both sides are recruiting new allies to stand with them. In the case of the Alliance, they gain the aid of the Void Elves, Lightforged Draenei, Dark Iron Dwarves, and the Kal'Thirans, whereas the Hordes, they gain the Nightborn, High Mountain Tauren, Magar Orcs, and the Zandalari Trolls. Sylvanas was set to make Garrosh look like an amateur, and she did not disappoint. The home of the Night Elves is burned down, the genocide of the race has been described, and people are starting to wonder why exactly Vol'jin appointed her to be the war chief. A mystery still waited to be revealed, while a rebellion is brewing. Meanwhile, there's not just the faction war, there's also the battle for the sake of the world itself. Magni Bronzebeard, the dwarf that ended up in a crystal, he's woken up and he acts as a speaker of the Titan spirit inside. She is in pain, suffering greatly, but perhaps by gathering these Azerites, we could prevent the destruction of our world and the death of the final Titan. A great plan indeed, except dark forces are ready to abuse them. The old god N'Zoth, together with Azshara, Queen of the Naga, they scheme and plot until the heirs of Azeroth are exactly where they want them. With the use of the Heart of Azeroth, the device that we use to store the Azerite and heal the world, N'Zoth is released from his prison. For the first time since the days of the Titans bringing order to the planet, an old god is on the loose.
All eyes shall be open.
As you can tell, history tends to repeat itself. As the Alliance and Horde, they realize that it's better to aim their weapons at the bigger threats rather than each other. The war chief of the Horde seems to be a threat to all as well. However, this is where we are with the story at the moment, with the full story of Warcraft. Only time will tell how Battle for Azeroth is going to unfold, what the future is going to bring. However, you're now up to speed with the global story of the Warcraft universe, from the very dawn of creation to the current time periods. Do keep in mind that this is a very global story. A lot of details are of course missing, but if we're going to cover all those little details, we'll be here for days. That's where my channel comes in, covering those beautiful topics, the stories of Warcraft in greater detail. A massive story which I can't wait to see further unfold, and like I mentioned at the start, you could potentially check out the full playlist in the description down below. For now though, thank you ever so much for your time, and thank you very much for watching everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and until next time, see ya!